Good morning, everyone. I'm Candy Daffin, the Florida Department of Transportation's CAD Application Training Coordinator. Welcome to today's webinar on the FDOT Reference Checker, GCS Report, and Supporting Tools, part of the CAD Office's ongoing series of webinars on hot CAD topics. Your presenter today is our very own CAD Support Specialist and Application Developer, James Griffith. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A dialog. Today's webinar has been pre-recorded, so James and our support staff will do our best to answer any questions in the dialogue in real time, and we'll take a moment at the end to discuss the Q&A or review any unanswered questions at that time. These questions and answers will be compiled into a Q&A document, which will be posted along with a recording of the webinar on our website. Please note that in GoToWebinar, the audio that accompanies a pre-recorded video may not be available through the call-in option of the webinar. It's best to use computer audio to be able to hear the pre-recorded portion of the webinar. If you experience any difficulties with the audio, the easiest way to fix that is to log off, check your audio settings, and log back in, as we don't have any control over the client-side audio. And now I'll turn things over to James.
Welcome to the webinar for the FDOT Connect Reference Checker GCS Report and Supporting Tools. My name is James Griffith. I am one of the CAD developers and support specialists here at the CAD office. On today's webinar, the topics we are going to cover is how to find the latest version of the software, how to check your version of the software that's installed. We're going to go over the reference checker and its three components. We're going to go over the select element tool and how to find an element quickly. We're going to go over the GCS report and the files that need to have coordinate systems in them. And then we're going to use the set coordinate system tool to quickly add coordinate systems to drawing files. And finally, we are going to go over how to find the compliance certification checklist. Now, how to check the website to find the latest version of our software. We'll first go to a web browser and go to the FDOT website. So we'll go to FDOT. We'll go to Offices. Scroll down to find Design. Go to Production Support. In the center list here, you'll see CAD. We'll click on that. We've kind of got a new website. If we come up to CAD Downloads and click on that, we can see the FDOT Connect software. We'll click on that. You can see up here the current version of the software. So if you're wanting to know what version of the CAD software that you're currently running, what we can do is go to our desktop, go to the FDOT folder. Once you find the FDOT folder, we'll find Workspace Doctor, which is toward the bottom. As you notice, the layout's a little bit different. The version is no longer up here at the top. It is down here at the bottom, so you will click on that. As you can see, we get all of our information. We have our FDOT version, the MicroStation version, ORD version, and so on. So with that information, we can take that and go to the website and take a look and compare. And this will give us a good indication of whether or not we need updates or not. Now what we're about to cover is the reference checker and the select element by ID tool. We will first go into the missing reference section, and then we'll move on to the missing line styles and then missing fonts. Alright, so not sure where my background went, but now we're going to open the FDOT load. This always takes a few minutes. So we're going to wait for this to load up. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is verify that we're working in a FDOT workspace and in the correct work set. Now, what I like to do is use the blank file to run these tools, and this takes a few minutes to load up, so we'll give it a little bit. I ought to be getting close now. There we go. We're starting to load some of the background information. Starting to populate the interface and waiting on it to finish loading. And there we go. Now what we need to do is go up to the FDOT tab, click on that, go over to the reference checker and click on that. Now that we have the tool up, we're going to go to the Browse button. We are going to go down to our project and we are going to click on the project. One thing to note is this cannot be run at a subfolder level and must be run on the root level. So we'll click OK. So one of the reasons that you do not want to run this on a subfolder is that once you run this at a subfolder level, any of the reference files that are up a level will be marked as outside the project file. One way to note that you are at the root of the folder is to look for the _ meta folder. If you see that folder, you know you're at the root. And in a second, I will show you how to look at subfolders while pointing at the root of the project. We'll click OK. As you can see, it populated all the files in my project. And if we are wanting to run only on a specific folder or specific folders, what we can do is come down and click the deselect all and only select the files in certain folders. For instance, if we just wanted to see the geotech folder, we could just select the geotech files like I did. We can deselect again and pick just the drainage files. Deselect again. And if we just click on the survey files, we can just look at that subset of files. So I didn't mean for this file to be in with my presentation file, so I'm going to deselect that one. We're now going to run the report. And as you can see, we've got all this information. If you look at the missing reference section, this particular part is the file that is missing the reference. Here is going to show you what model the reference is in and the path to that reference. And the last column will show you whether it's outside the project or missing. In this particular data set, I wanted to show you two of the most common issues that I see, and that is whether or not the file is actually outside the project, or if you find the file inside the project, but it still comes up as listed outside the project, then it's an issue on whether or not it's a relative path or not. And we'll go through how to fix that as well. Now for the missing line styles section of the tool, similar to the portion above, we have the file that the line style is in. We have the model that that line style is in, the element name and the element number, as well as the line style name and line style number. Now, one thing to note with this is we are going to be making an update to filter out certain line style numbers because we're getting a false reading, and that should be released on the next release. We're just going to use the first two files in the list so that we can use the Find Element by ID tool using the element number. The final section of the reference checker is the missing fonts section. And what this does is any MicroStation file that lists a font as being missing will get populated into this list, and we'll go over where to put these fonts in the project for submittal. Next, what we're going to do is export this file just so that we have a copy of the record. The file name will default to missing project data report. You can change this to whatever you like. We'll click Save. As you can see, it successfully created the report. We can now close the pop-up, close the reference checker tool, go to our project folder, and go to our missing project data report. We double click on that. You can see we have a saved copy of what exactly the reference checker found. Each tab represents each of the different parts of the reference checker tool. If we go back to the missing reference tab and click on that, there we go. We can see our three files that we're going to look at today. The first file that we're going to look at is the drainage file in the default 3D model. And the reference we're going to look at is the survey file. Notice that it is listed as outside the project, so we're going to go ahead and open the drainage folder and open the drainage file. I'm going to go ahead and move the report to the side. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open our survey file, the survey file that the drainage was missing. We're going to go take a look at that. So if we move our report back over, we can see the drainage file is missing the survey file 08. Survey file 08 is actually in our project. So this is going to be a candidate for it not being a relative path. So what we're going to do now is move over to our blank file DGN and go through the File Explorer and navigate to our drainage file and make the update there. So I'm now going to pull back over my MicroStation blank DGN file. I am going to go up to the Explorer. I'm going to go back to the drainage and open that, and then open the file. Wait for this to load. Take a couple minutes. And almost there. And there we go. Now what we're going to do is open our model tab. As you can see, we have the two in here. We can pull our report over and take a look. We're wanting to look at the default 3D model. So we'll double click on default 3D. Close that. We can now click on references, and we can take a look at our two references. Double click on that and go to browse. As you can see, the check mark for save as relative path is unchecked. We can go ahead and select that and click open and OK. And we can go down to our other one and do the exact same thing. Make sure that's also saved as relative path. Click that and click OK. One thing I'd like to note is that even though the file name may or may not look like it is relative path, it is always best to check, because I have seen some false readings. We're going to close this window. We're going to go back up to our File Explorer. Go up a level. Go back to our Geotech folder. Open the Geotech file with the missing references. Now what we're going to do is pull over our report as it's finishing loading. As you can see, this is kind of scrunched together, so I'm going to go ahead and expand this out a little bit so that we can see the individual columns. As you can see, we have some on the default and the default 3D. So now we're going to go to our Models tab, go to our Default, go to our References. I'm going to expand out the file name a little bit. This is the file that we have outside the project. I did put it in a folder called Outside the Project so that I knew which file it would be. Now what we're going to do is grab our File Explorer and slide that over. Then we're going to go up a folder to the FDOT folder, go to my File Outside folder, copy the file inside of there, move it back to the survey directory, and paste it in. Obviously the files will need to go in the correct disciplines. We can now go back into the references. We can go ahead and select and update the location of that file. If you notice I didn't check the save relative path, that is because if you're working within inside of the FDOT load, the default is always set to save as relative path. As a general rule, it's always good to check that box. And click Open, click X, click X. Now we're going to go back to our default model open our references, open the browse of that reference, select the file. As you can see, it's already been saved as relative path. Since this file has already been updated, we can hit cancel. We can exit out of that. We can close that, close this, go back up to our Explorer, click on that, go up a folder, go back to our blank file, and open that. Once that loads, go back to our reference checker, verify that we're in that folder, uncheck that file that we didn't want to check, and as you can see, we have removed all files with issues. Real quick before we move on to the missing line styles, I want to show you what it looks like when we have a broken reference. So what we're going to do is close this, close that. I am going to go up to the File Explorer, go into our drainage folder, and then go into our drainage file. Now that we have our drainage file open, we can quickly simulate that by breaking a reference. So we'll open up our project. I'm going to rename this. We're going to get rid of that space, and that should cause a break in the reference. So we'll minimize that. We'll come up there to the FDOT tool. I'm currently running in the drainage file. Click on Reference Checker. We'll browse and make sure that we are at the root of the project. Click OK. Deselect this again, and we'll go ahead and hit Run. As you can see, we now have a found reference as false, meaning that we have a broken reference. Go ahead and close this. We can close this. I can come up to the Home tab. We can come up to our models, go to the 3D model, go to our attach. As you can see, it's in red, that is a broken link. Double click on that, go to browse, and select our file that it's supposed to be. As you can see, save as relative path is already checked. We can click OK, click OK again, and that reference has been updated. We can now go back up to the FDOT tab, go back to the reference checker, hit browse, go down to our project, click OK, deselect that, and hit run again. As you can see, it took care of that missing reference, and it's no longer showing up in the report. If for whatever reason you need to delete a file, or do you think a reference is no longer necessary, always make sure that the owner of that file is the one that removes that reference. Now we're going to move on to the missing line style section and how to use the Find Element by ID tool. We are going to be using the first two files, as you can see here, as our example. We're going to make note that it's in the drainage folder. Open up the drainage folder, open the drainage file. This will take a second to load. I'm going to click OK on this pop-up just because it's an example file and I'm not too worried about what that's doing. Alright, once it finishes loading, we can go to the Home tab, go to our models, make sure that we're in the default model. We can close that. I can grab our report and slide that over. We can go to the missing line styles, check out our two files that we're going to look at, note that they are in the default model, and get the element ID. Move that back off the screen. I can come up to the FDOT tools, go to the miscellaneous tools, go down to select element by ID, click on that. We can go ahead and type in our ID number. We can click find. As you can see, it highlighted it over here. That's not what I wanted, so I will click on this other view, do the same thing again, type in our ID number, click on it, close that out, and as you can see, it has selected the element that is causing the missing line style error. We can now make note of the line style that's on this element. We can pull over our report again and go look for the next element. We'll go back to the select element by ID. So we'll put that in. As you can see, it popped us right to it. We can now make note of that element and its line style. If this wasn't a example file, you would want to make note of the exact name of that custom line style. In the next section, when we look at custom fonts, I'll show you where you can put the custom line styles as well as the custom fonts. Now if we go back to the report, we can move over to the Missing Fonts tab. All you need to do is note the name of that missing font, and then what you can do is go back to your project folder, open the symbology folder, and you can put your missing fonts and missing line styles in there. One thing to note is that even when you add your custom fonts and custom line styles to the symbology folder, they will not be removed off of the report, so that we know what line styles and fonts need to be loaded to correctly display the project. Now we're going to go over the GCS report and how to use that, as well as how to use the Set Coordinate System tool. So now what we're going to do is start out fresh. We're going to double click the FDOT ORD icon. We'll let that load. It'll take just a little bit. It's thinking about it. And there we go. We're going to verify our workspace and workset. We're going to open the blank file DGN. Again, this will take a few minutes to load. There we go, starting to get some loading. Interface is starting to load in. And there we go. It's loaded. Now what we're going to do is go up to the FDOT tab, click on that, go over to the GCS report, click on that. We'll go to our browse, make sure that we're selecting the root of the project, click OK, and click Run. As you can see, it pulled up a list of files with and without coordinate systems. We can now hit Export and save a copy of this. It defaults to coordinate report. Click Save. And now you can see it popped up our Excel file. We can go ahead and move this off to the side. In the CAD manual, under section 5.5, it states that the geographic coordinate system must be set in production drawings derived from seed files to an appropriate zone, which means you do not need to have coordinate systems on sheet files. If you look back at the GCS report, you can see on the fourth column in that it will tell you what kind of file it is. So for this example of using the set coordinate system tool, what we're going to do is scroll around a little bit and see if we can't find a drawing that kind of catches our eye. In this particular case, I'm going to select the Super Elevation 3D. So we're going to do that alignment file and go ahead and use the tool to add that coordinate system to those two. Now what I'm going to do is minimize that. Then I need to actually close that. So I'm going to reopen that and click the X. Now we can go in and open up our roadway folder, which is right there. Open up our alignment file. Give that a second or two. Our alignment's now open. We can pull over our report, scroll down to our super elevation, expand these out. So there's our super elevation under our model name. We can minimize that. Go back to home, click on model. We're going to do our super elevation 3D first. Double click that. I'm going to center our elevation. We're going to go to the FDOT tab. Click on that. Go back to our miscellaneous tools. Click on that. Down to set coordinate system. Click on that. Now that we have that open, we can either set it by the coordinate system or we can set it by the county. In this particular case, I know this is Wakulla County, so I'll select that. It goes ahead and updates the coordinate system. Click OK, and we are done. Now I'm going to go back to the blank DGN file, open that up. Go back to the GCS report, verify that we're in the correct project, click Run, and if we scroll down, we can now see that Super Elevation 3D has been added as having a coordinate system. We can go ahead and do the Super Elevation as well. Go to the File Explorer. So we'll do the same thing. We'll go to roadway, open up the alignment, Let that load. Now we'll go to Home. We'll go to our models. We'll go to our super elevation model. Close that. We can now go to the FDOT tab. Go to our miscellaneous tools. Select coordinate system. It already remembered that we were in Wakulla. We click set. We're good to go. So now we'll open our Explorer. Go up a folder. Go into the blank DGN file again. That's loaded. We can go to the FDOT tab. Go to the GCS report. Click on Browse. Verify that we are in the root of the project. Click Run. And as you can see, that quick, we now have the super elevations done. And it is that quick. Now what we're about to go over is where to find the compliance certification checklist. We'll do that by opening a browser. Any browser will work. I'm using Edge, and any search engine will work. I'm going to use Google. We can then go to Google. We can then type in FDOT and search for that. If we select the FDOT website, we can go to Offices, browse down to where we can find Design and go to Production Support. If we scroll down on Production Support, you'll see in this list CAD. Click on that. As you can see, we've gotten a new website, so some things are going to be moved around. If you're looking for the CAD manual, you'll come over here to Current CAD Manual. Click on that. As you can see, all of the chapters are busted out. And the one we are looking for is the introduction. So chapter 1. We can click on that. We can kind of go through this and see the definitions, information about the scope, the organization of the manual, roles and responsibilities, distribution, revisions and updates, information for training, links and forms, suggestions and comments or questions, and finally, the compliance certification checklist. Each of these items will be checked if applicable to the project and will be certified by the engineer of record. So a faster way to get to the compliance certification checklist is to come up to the table of contents, which is up here in the left corner. We'll click on that, see table of contents. Instead of being in chapter 1, we're going to go to chapter 2. And we'll do that because the certification compliance checklist is at the end of chapter 1. So all we need to do now is just scroll up. And there we go. As a recap, we went over how to check the website for the current software release, how to check your current installed version for comparison, We went over the reference checker and how to fix issues with references, how to find missing line styles using the Find Element tool, and where to place the custom line styles and fonts in the project. We used the GCS report to find models with missing coordinate systems and talked about what files need coordinate systems. We then used the Set Coordinate System tool to quickly add coordinate systems to the model. And finally, we looked at where you can find the compliance certification checklist in the CAD manual. We finally made it to the end. Thank you all for joining me on this webinar. If you guys need any help, feel free to reach out to us through our email at cadsupport@dot.state.fl.us. You can also get us through our website, and we are active on the Bentley Communities forums, so feel free to post questions there as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you, James. And thanks to everyone for spending time with us today and joining us for today's webinar. This recording should be posted within about a week or so on our website, the same location that you found the original link to register. As James showed, our website has changed a little bit, but if you do look on fdot.gov/CAD and in the CAD webinars link, you will be able to find the posted webinar when it gets uploaded to the site for you. We did have one question, and I think it was answered in the chat. It was about some slow operation. I would like to remind everyone that, and it was, the question was resolved. We know that it was trying to run these tests over a network, so that slowed things down. But if you do have any slow operation or any other issues with any of the tools, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at that CAD.support email, and that comes to our support group, and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. Let's see, we did have one other question. Maybe James can answer it for us. What do you do if you cannot find the missing line style resource file? So James or Mike, can one of you answer that question for me?
I would assume whoever created the file should have access to the line style. I'm assuming you can hear me.
Yes.
And just get it from that person, or if for whatever reason you no longer have access to that, I would assume you would need to go back, put that to something that that line style to something that would be findable or that you do already have access to, and then just include it if it's not part of our load. I think that's right, Mike, right? You're muted.
There we go. Yeah, typically somebody creating files shouldn't have missing line styles. That would be something more on our delivery report we would see. But if you're running the report yourself and can't find the line style, MicroStation or ORD or whatever is going to replace it with a solid line. So you would need to go back in and either find the line style resource that was created from, so a RSC file or a DGN lib, or restylize it with one of the existing line styles we provide. And then we had one other one on GCS and bulk, like updating the GCS on files. Candy, there's a question, is CAD Office working on batch tool to apply GC to all files and models? It's time consuming to change them. So if you use the create file tool and set the GCS for your files, you shouldn't run into that issue. We don't provide a bulk tool for doing that, because if you have a system set and you change it to a different system, we're not going to be reprojecting it, so your data might end up corrupted. Best thing to do is make sure it's set before you start working on files. So if you use Create File Tool, that'll automatically set the coordinate system for you, and I believe it even sets it on all the design models. No, not design models, the drawing models. When you generate drawing models from the design model, it'll set it automatically. So if you set it at the beginning, you should be good to go.
All right. Not seeing any other questions coming in at this point. So we will compile all these questions and answers, and it will get posted along with the video. Thank everyone again for joining us today. And we hope you've gotten a lot of good information out of today's webinar, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.